with Beto Colville as Felix. He does a great job.
Oh, yeah.
With Maddie, they do a great job together. Both of them, honestly. It's great.
So, my favorite, I also had to look it up, was Could I Love With No Fear. It's the number where she's just in the salon getting dressed, and they're just got a lot of really neat costumes in that scene.
They really do.
And I really like the way it was shot. I like that she always had that little door on the top of her head, and they kept like zooming in on that, and she kept coming out with another costume. Right. I enjoyed that.
Right, you get some non-offensive facial expressions there that are just kind of
fun.
fun.
Exactly. It seemed like Maddie was having the most fun doing that particular number, just because she was just being, a little bit more free.
And you actually get Sia in that number as well.
You do. She's baghead.
Yeah, she's wearing a paper bag with her traditional colors. I think the whole doesn't show her face like Maynard or like the Gorillas is kind of a neat aesthetic, and I know,
it. Me too, kind of, or even like Daft Punk.
Yeah,
Daft Punk.
Yeah, even like Daft Punk. I'm having a little trouble with my least favorite scene.
Well, I have one. It's definitely the sprinkler scene, 1+1. God, I hated that number. It's so annoying.
The musical number, for sure. There's no specific reason that Kate Hudson in a tight linoleum red onesie holding two hoses, spraying water out of them while they're jiggling around should be offensive.
It just feels...
It hits an uncanny valley area for some reason. It really does.
Yeah, I don't know. It rubbed me the wrong way. I didn't like it. I don't like the song. The song gets on my nerves.
I don't like the bubblegum outfits.
That was literally what I was about to say next.
Freak me out. There's one kid that's a little bit shorter, and so it looks
like the bubblegum is about consuming him.
Yeah, it's a very, very weird effect.
Yeah, it's just, there's not a lot, and there's just an overload of pink.
There's an overload, yeah.
Like, just everything's pink. I hated it. I did not like that scene. So what's yours?
I hate to say it, but my least favorite scene is probably the boxing scene with Felix.
With Felix, where he hugs the guy instead.
Where he hugs the kid instead of boxing him.
It's awkward, isn't it?
It's awkward, and you kind of get where his dad's coming from, beating the crap out of him and his mom, don't you?
A little, not really.
No, not really. No, not really. It's so horrible. It's the worst thing ever. Because
I was actually surprised that they went that Sia went there.
It goes so dark so quickly. Yeah. They go there so quickly, and it goes right from him hugging that kid to him just dying.
Right. Like, within a day.
It's that night.
Right, that night.
It's that evening he dies.
Jesus. So dark.
It's also pretty sad when you see, after the musical number, music with him all dressed up as he's going off to heaven. You see him still in that outfit with Sue on the couch as she's all black, bruised, and beaten. And he's tucking her in.
That was a nice little touch.
It was a nice little touch. Time for worst performance, best performance.
Well, worst performance, easily for me, goes to Kate Hudson.
Oh my gosh.
Sorry, Kate, but you maybe should have leaned a little bit into the Shia LaBeouf darkness.
I'll let you take Kate Hudson. She is an awful performance. I'm remarkably disappointed in Leslie Odom Jr. And I don't mean in a way where everybody makes mistakes, These are hard productions, and nobody should have such high expectations of these actors for them to perform on such a scale time and time again. I simply know that Leslie Odom is much more capable than this, and that we will see much better things from him in the future, and his character here was very one-note. It's very depressing, and
I will say this, the one thing that he really adds to the movie is the soundtrack. I think his song numbers are actually really well sung.
They are. And
he's a really good performer, so a lot of the dance numbers are also pretty well danced.
Right, they are pretty well danced. He knows how to do blocking and things like that.
I mean, a lot of the errors is just the character.
Right, a lot of the errors are just really the character. Okay, so...
Best performance.
Best performance. I feel my personal favorite best performance is Beto Colville as Felix. The one I was just making fun of, and I am sorry for making fun of him, but here's my defense. Yes, he's a good dancer. He is a good dancer. He's actually a professional dancer, or at least
I
a semi-professional
came across him
dancer.
On Instagram while we were researching this movie.
Yeah, but here's my thing. He doesn't have a single line during the entire movie.
Sad, right?
It is sad, but I do feel like he does a good job without having a single line. He has a well-developed character, even without that.
He does.
Right.
He
So
does.
I'm going for Vito Colville as my favorite actor for the movie.
Okay, well, I'm gonna say it. I think the best performance is Maddie. As awful as her performance as music is, it's honestly really good. She did everything that was asked of her.
That's true. I do feel like that's what it was asked of her.
That was what was asked for. She does her singing in the movie. She sings several of the songs, like Oh Body. She sings that. I mean, I don't like the song Oh Body, but it's very catchy.
It is very catchy, obnoxiously so.
Obnoxiously catchy. And all her dance numbers are very well choreographed. She executes it very well. And I think she does exactly what Sia wanted her in that performance. And I think a lot of the things that I fondly remember about the movie are from Maddie's parts.
I can definitely agree with that.
Favorite quotes?
Favorite quotes. Okay. Favorite quotes.
Well, there's a few.
There's a few.
There's a few. I mean, I mean, there's Rachel Hea.
Rachel Hea. Make you eggs. Right.
Go to bed.
Right.
Go to bed.
I'm setting it free. Woo!
Gross.
Gross. I know. Oh, okay. I think that's probably about it for favorite quotes.
I mean, a lot of them are just music's little, like, idioms.
Yeah, music's little idioms. He is dead now.
Oh, he is dead now.
He is dead now.
Right.
Right, that's a good one as well.
Yeah.
So let's go to our Fix This Flick segment.
Fix This Flick.
Okay, so Fix This Flick. I've had thoughts. A lot of it would be addressing music as a character directly. What I think that Sia should have done was never to have the character autistic. I mean, it does take away from the autistic representation. However, she didn't approach it the right way to begin with. And it had Maddie just been a normal girl, she would have been perfectly fine. I think he could have totally had a story of sisters reconnecting with each other. Or if she even kept Shia in the role, she could have had like a very touching story about a brother and sister who are very opposite of each other coming together.
Right, but it needs that emotional arc.
It
right?
does. And I think you do have that with her being a normal person.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm okay with keeping Maddie as an autistic person, but you need to tone it down by about 98%. It needs to be barely observable. She needs to go full on Rain Man. Her autistic quirks need to be barely noticeable, and she also needs to be slightly gifted to make her more sympathetic.
Right, a little bit more on the Asperger's spectrum.
Yeah, more on the Asperger's spectrum. But I guess then you also run into the other people can play that character.
Right, honestly, yeah. Heading back to my storyline, I would have also had my normal music have an aspiration to either be a singer or a dancer. And this would have been my way to have Sia have her cameo. Like, she has a big concert at the end of the movie that music goes to.
Right, that is a better way to go, because then you can incorporate Felix into that a lot more.
Right.
Then there's a reason for him not to want to be a boxer and to want to be a dancer.
Exactly.
And his dad can just be an antagonist in that, and not a straight-up murderer.
Right, and then so you have this scene at the very end where Music and Felix are possibly at this concert, and they get noticed by Sia, and then they're on the stage dancing. They're doing the things that they wanted to do, you know?
Right, that's a much better place for a cameo. That's a much better place to address things. You get all the people you want in that.
Exactly. And everybody that would have been a would-be antagonist are going to be in the audience seeing all this. And they're like, oh, you know, you have that moment where you're like, oh, maybe I shouldn't have been so hard on them. They're doing the things that they wanted to do on the stage, you know?
Right. You also need more emotional growth from Kate Hudson earlier on. You need her character to grow some before she has the alcoholic relapse some, and then grow back to a higher point. That's how you do that.
Yeah.
You can't have her not grow at all, and then have an alcoholic relapse, and then become worse than she was before, and then have her supposed to be the best person that she's ever been.
Yeah, no way.
Yeah, it's all too quickly because it's a couple of minutes.
Right. I wouldn't have kept Kate in my version. I would use Shia instead.
I feel like Kate could have done better, but again, should have known better.
I feel like the story that I would want to tell, it would be more fitting with Shia.
Shall we get to our overall movie ratings?
Overall movie ratings.
All right. So what is your movie rating for this as a good movie? What would you give it as a good movie rating?
It's a 2.
It's a 2, right?
I had a lot of problems with the movie. I didn't really like it at all for the first viewing. I am kind of a Sia fan. and I say that loosely, I like a few of her songs, and I like covers of those songs too. But, I found so little redeeming qualities of the movie itself, except for the occasional one-off line from music, like braid your hair or go to bed, and those are the only parts that I actually look forward to of the movie, like those little throwaway lines that don't take up a whole lot of the movie's runtime.
Right. Honestly, I read those reviews, and I felt like that was... The positive reviews for the movie do kind of let me see in a different light. I appreciate that people were touched by it, I appreciate
and I can understand that too.
And I can understand where they come from, honestly. And I think a lot of the positive reviews came from either people who were very far on the scale of autism or who were family members of people who had family members who were severely autistic.
Right.
And I think people who are higher functioning found Maddie's portrayal offensive. And I think there's a reason why that's understandable.
Right.
Because they look at Maddie and say, I am much more functional than that. And that is true. That is understandable.
Mm-hmm.
Not only that, is Maddie doesn't play a realistic autistic person. That's not the way any autistic person acts.
Well, I mean, yes. I have autistic siblings. I know how they would react like that. I mean, there's certainly parts of music that reminded me of them. However, it's not that bad. It's like almost like you're looking at it with a microscope or a magnifying glass.
Right. It kind of gives me the same issues that Onward gave me, where the father's pants don't have any sense of logic in what they can understand. 1 second they can hear, 1 second they can't. And then Maddie's the same way, where 1 second can she understand what you're saying to her, or can't she?
I remember asking that at one point.
Verbalizing or not. It's touching that she does the little speaking thing right as Zoo is trying to get rid of her, but it's super sad to me because a person with autism likely would not be able to do that, and especially in such a high tense situation.
Right.
And that it makes me even more sad watching that scene, knowing that it would never play out like this
in real life.
In real life, that music would just be left there.
I know, the true version of this story would be a lot more grim.
So, all that being said, what would be your bad movie rating for this movie? What would you give it for, like, a bad movie score?
So I'm going to give it a 6. It's a little hard to watch. It's offensive at times, and sometimes that offensiveness will pull you away from the movie. However, it's got some really catchy song numbers and fun to watch. It's got a lot of memorable lines by music mostly, and there's a few by Zoo and Ebo. And it's a fun movie to get a whole bunch of people together and bash the crap out of the movie.
Here's the thing. I almost want to break it up into some categories.
Right.
If you enjoy cringe, it has a 9 or a 10 out of 10 on cringe. Probably a 9 out of 10 on cringe.
Right. It's got a lot of cringe.
It's got a lot of cringe. If you enjoy corny, goofy subplots, it's got nothing for you. It's got no cheesiness, nothing that's corny really. I mean, besides some of the dancing, and you could call Maddie's acting corny. To me, it just comes off offensive. As opposed to
mostly
corny.
Offensive.
More cringe, again, than corny. You don't get good, bad line delivery.
Except for make you eggs.
Except for make you eggs, braid your hair. A couple ones from Maddie. You do okay, so you do get a couple bad lines.
I mean, those were the ones that stuck out to me.
You do have a lot of things that you can criticize while watching this movie. Watching it with people, you definitely are going to be shook and shocked by the things that are happening and be like, oh my gosh, I cannot believe this horrible person. How is she on screen? And that has some value to it, right? It does feel like a little bit of a hard run, and maybe if you had something...
Right, I mean, the Wedding Crasher, like, singing performance and the final song number by Sia where they're all together, that didn't do it for you?
I mean, I can't help but think of the role that Justin Bartha plays in Geely.
Yeah, we actually made a direct comparison to that. It seemed very similar.
Here's the thing. Justin Bartha's portrayal in Geely is actually possibly less offensive. He swears a lot more, which is offensive. But also, it tones down a little bit halfway through.
It does tone down, because the focus of Geely becomes Ben Affleck's relationship with Jennifer Lopez.
Yeah, we'll get more into that possibly another time if we do it. But just to compare with the Justin Bartha thing, if you have seen Geely and you haven't seen this, just expect it to be a little bit cringier.
You know, thinking about it, plot-wise, it is almost the same, just gender flopped.
It is very similar.
Gender swapped.
Yeah, it's very similar to Geely, and it's hard not to make some comparisons there.
Yeah.
Right.
And we watched them pretty close together, so it kind of did stand out.
there's things I like about it as a bad movie. If I had more people that I could force to watch this with me, I would enjoy it more because I like subjecting people to pain.